Hello and welcome to today's webinar about the highlights of Metamorphosis. My name is Melanie Tropper from the Austrian Mobility Research Institute. I will be the host for today's session, so if you do have any technical issues, you can write me a message in the chat. Today's presenter will be Karl Reiter, also one of the founders of the Austrian Mobility Research Institute and one of the coordinators of the Metamorphosis project. Yes, if you do have any questions, I would ask you to type them in the chat. I will collect them and Karl will try to answer them at the end of his presentation as good as possible. With that, I hand over to you, Karl.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for joining us to our webinar for a project which is now running about 3 years, almost 3 years, called Metamorphosis. For the next 20 minutes to half an hour, I will try to make some highlights available for you, which can be replicated maybe in your environment. So here you can read the full title of our project. It's Transformation of Neighborhoods in a Child-Friendly Way to Increase the Quality of Life for All Citizens. So it's a project within the Horizon 2020 project, and started 3 years ago and will end in the end of October, because it was a little bit extended because of the Corona crisis. So we started with the blank sheet. What you see here is our emblem or our logo. It's the butterfly. And so we start with a caterpillar, and what we see in the current economic system very often is that the caterpillar develops to a bigger caterpillar and to a monster caterpillar. This is what we can call the approach of bigger, faster, heavier, higher, or we call it more of the same. In our project, we would like to follow more the other approach. It's the approach of qualitative change, and it's from caterpillar to pupa and to butterfly. So this is the more complex approach, but probably the more beautiful and the more interesting one. It's the approach of the qualitative leap. But in our transport world, we very often see the monster caterpillar approach. If we look, for instance, to our cars, how they developed in the last 30 years, from small cars to the bigger ones and to the very fat caterpillar, the SUVs. And we have similar thing when we look to our infrastructure. It's also this more of the same approach. In our project, we want to concentrate on the approach starting with a normal street and using the power of children to transform, to have this metamorphosis to another level, to another quality level, and to use the street for people instead of machines, and especially for children. We are quite happy that a survey carried out last year gave us a lot of hope. And this survey was carried out by the German Club of Motorists, the car driver club. They asked the citizens of German city if they are in favor for a new distribution of road space, if they are in favor to reallocate space from car traffic, which is now used for car traffic, should be in future used for cycling and walking. And there was a very surprising result, which they reported back. 2/3 of all people in German cities are ready for a change in the distribution of road space. And only one third is contra and would like to leave the things as they are. This is a good uh, starting point, and it gives a feeling that the population is maybe more aware of a change than some decision makers are. In our project, we we put the focus on the children, and we use this sentence of Jan Gehl that a city which is good for children, which has a lot of children in the streets, is a city of good quality of life. It is a good indicator. And starting with that, we try to think about children for all phases of our project. For the analysis phase, because children are radical questioners, or are facilitators, or children are good feedback senders, and also they can influence their parents and their grandparents, so they can play a role in every phase of the project. And this was the main idea behind the Metamorphosis project. But what we got first is we got an addition in the beginning of our project 3 years ago. We got a real challenge. We got an additional work package called ethics, and we had to formulate all our tasks in a way that an ethic approval authority could check it and could give us the ethic approval. This was especially because the involvement of children is a very sensitive issue. But it was really hard to find the right authority who was able to hand over this approval, and was a lot of work to put the things together in a way that they could, let's say, accept it. And we even needed a special independent ethic advisor. And we had the help of our university partner in Southampton, though they give us a lot of support in all these ethic questions. But if anybody is doing something in that way, you have to think about that, about the ethics. So who are the partners? It consists of 7 cities. So the city of Southampton in UK, in Tilburg in the Netherlands, Zürich in Switzerland, Munich in Germany, city of Meran in Italy, city of Graz in Austria, and city of Alba Julia in Romania. And then we have 3 university partners: the University of Southampton, the University of Technology from Dresden, and the Breda University of Applied Sciences. And then we have some implementing partners with special tasks. So it's Austrian Mobility Research, where I am working for. It's the coordinating partner, then Synergo, a Swiss planner society, who was responsible for the implementation procedure and coordinating all that, and a co-institute in Italy, and they are responsible for dissemination and exploitation activities. And Lehmwirbel Graz, it's a neighborhood NGO with a lot of experience in involving neighborhood. So the work was divided in several activity fields. So one of them was temporary street openings, which means street closings for motorized traffic, but opening for all other road users. Then interventions in public space to, let's say, to put some things in place that make people aware that there could be another use of public space, sometimes in a very innovative way. and educational material to make this awareness on paper and as an educational tools in schools and in higher schools, and to empower active mobility, so walking, using the scooter and cycling, and to make children more self-confident when moving around on the roads, and to give them competence and empowerment. Then to implement crystallization points. These are uh, activities which bring people together to communicate, to exchange. And then we have a field called planning procedures. So to make planning procedures more user-friendly and to integrate all the actions carried out in Metamorphosis into urban mobility plans, into sustainable urban mobility plans. So I start with my first highlight. This is from the city of Southampton, and they did a very important thing. They used their procedure of applying for a street party or for a community event, and they tried to make it easier for people, to make it user-friendly. So they carried out workshops with children and with citizens and tried to remove all the barriers in the procedure of the application process for a street party or for a street opening. They implemented an own website and they made it easy to use and free of charge. And this is a very, this looks very easy, but I know from the city where I am from that it is a very hard work to change administrative procedures and to make them user friendly. We tried it in Graz for 3 years and we are still not on in the end. So congratulations to the city of Southampton. And they have this own website. You can download the application form and easily applicate. And they have also some organizations which operate UK-wide, like Playing Out or the Street Party. They offer a lot of support in guidelines, in material, and so on. And that's why 77 applications arrived in the city of Southampton within 1.5 years of the project duration. This is quite impressive, and it's not only one time a year per street, but there is also the possibility to have regular street openings. So, for instance, once a week or once a month. The next highlight is from the city of Tilburg. They worked with children in schools. By the way, this makes all these ethic things much easier because schools have usually these informed consent forms already in place. So if you take photos or videos and so on, you need this for publication. What they did is, on the one hand, they equipped the children with red and green cards and sent them out to explore the school environment and to find out the places in the built environment which are well done, and therefore they took the green card, and then they have the red cards for places which should improve. And they use this analysis tool and bring it back and make some improvements for the school environment. And a similar thing was done to give feedback to road drivers. It was called Safe to School. So they used the wardens or the guards. They give some presentations in the school classes, And then they went out with children, also equipped with the green and red card, and gave feedback to car drivers to raise awareness to behave safe in the school environment. These were very successful implementations. More than 4,000 pupils were affected, and in 70 schools. And these school ideas, plans, concepts were taken up in the local SAMP, and now all school environments will be taken into account for redesign in a more child-friendly way. And another example for school-related or school environment-related activities, it's the school street model of Bolzano. We call it traffic acupuncture. So it's only a very small intervention. You don't allow access for cars for 15 minutes in the street in front of the school entrance, like here in Bolzano or in Meran, and 15 minutes when the school ends. So it's only a very, very small intervention, but with a big impact, because car drivers or parents who drove their children by car to the school cannot reach the school entrance anymore by car. And this makes a big change in the transport behavior of the children and the families. And now it is also extended as a scale-up action to Salzburg, to Brussels, and to the city of Vienna. And what you see here in the graph is a before-after survey in the environment of the schools, and you see that the car traffic is reduced to zero in the after action, and this is a quite successful and easy to implement activity. In the city of Alba Julia, they implemented what we call crystallization points. And it's crystallization points for communication, for exchange, for coming together, discourse and discussions. And these urban gardening things are very good for that. So these raised beds, the schools and kindergartens are integrated in the action, and there is, for instance, seed exchange, workshops, watering groups. All these things make some social connection amongst the people. And it's a good idea to do this in the public space, and changes a lot in the neighborhood communication and in the feeling of belonging together. It was also implemented in Graz and Meran in different contexts. Also a green measure for changing awareness. This is the city of Munich, one of our partners in the Metamorphosis project. They implement these walking trees. And these are trees on skateboard, type of skateboard, mobile elements, and you can move the trees to areas which are dominated by asphalt. So if you want to have a feeling in how would it look like if I would have streets if I would have trees in my street instead of only asphalt, then you can invite these walking trees, and they they did it in a clever way, working together with the local businesses and neighborhoods. And this was well accepted. And then there are watering communities, and it brings also the people together. And the idea is, if you have the feeling and you like it, that you ask the city to do permanent solutions. So to have, after the walking, the movable tree, a fixed tree in your street. But for getting the feeling and raising awareness, this is a really good action, turned out as a good action. This was done in the city of Meran. This is a skater ramp. Maybe you can see it. This is the opening procedure. It was designed by young people because there was illegal parking in the inner city area, and to avoid that, there was a vision building workshop with children and youth, and they made a plan for that skater ramp and assembled it also together and used it for some weeks. So the space, the public space, got a different usage, different pictures, and this was very exciting for the young people, especially because this was on the way to the school. So in the morning, it could be used for some minutes, or when the young people come back from the school and went home, they could also use it. This makes a lot of difference to the situation before, made a lot of difference to the situation before. Yeah, in Graz, all the primary schools had some temporary street openings. This means to close it for motorized transport and to use the space for children in front of the school before the school starts and after the school ends, but especially during school breaks, and to have outdoor lessons in mathematics, in sports, and so on, to use the street also for the school. And this makes a big change. We have made videos to that, but starting with a temporary change, and let's say to make the city decision makers aware that there could be a permanent change, and the street it's much better used than only for car parking. And how we can start step by step is, we can start with this actions only for one day, or we can do it more regularly, connecting it with some other regular events. And of course, we can it permanent free for school hours. This 7 to 5 school street. So cars are only allowed in the evening and at the weekends. And for the rest of the day, for school time, it's part of the school area, this living lab. We had it in Metamorphosis for 2 times a year for 1 week to show how it works, and it worked very, very well. For instance, the children brought by car were reduced by 50%. And then, of course, we can use this topic of traffic calming and freeing from car traffic in the school lessons, and bring the message home to the parents and grandparents, where they can also start a discussion about their living environment and what message should be sent to the city if the living environment should be also car reduced or freed from car traffic. The city of Zürich worked with 2 different neighborhoods. One was a more wealthy one, and one a more less privileged one. And the children did in these two neighborhoods the survey. They went out and did the photographs and the countings and all that, and looked at the neighborhood environment with the eyes of children, and then collected ideas and started with vision building. And in both of these neighborhoods were measures implemented, like the SharePoint, which you see here is it's a rent out cargo bike. And the most colorful activity, there was a underpass, which was ugly and a little bit, it was unpleasant to walk through and dark. And then with the help of an artist, the children uh, repainted this tunnel, and it was lighted, and now it looks, it was really the most colorful measure in our Metamorphosis project. Where I have no picture here is what in Zurich was also carried out was this bicycle repair workshop, which turned in the uh, living area, which turned out as very successful. This is one measure also from Zürich. It is handicraft lesson. So to put together a pallet, wooden pallets, and paint it and assemble it to a juice bar and invite people to, let's say, to offer juice and to drink it there. And this was made on a parking space. So the children learned how to transform a parking space into a much more livable area as a school project. And they learned a lot in arts and handicrafts, but they also got the lesson how to change the use of public space, of public street space. This is a measure of the city of Munich, very successfully. It's about gamification. The city of Munich put these small blue boxes you see on the picture there and handed out paper maps in the neighborhood, and these boxes and RFID chips, and the children looked for these boxes and then checked in with their card, and then you had to find the next box by walking or using your scooter or cycling, and then you get points. And this was done in groups or in shul classes. So the children explored their neighborhood and got in contact with the citizens. And this was a very successful activity. So the number of children playing in streets increased a lot by 54%, and especially children walking and cycling, the numbers increased. We had a very good evaluation there, also with the help of the Technical University of Dresden. And more than 6,000, this was played in 3 different neighborhoods, and more than 6,000 people were affected of all ages, even the grandparents, of course, were part of it, but mainly it was young people. And we could also find out how many kilometers were moved around in an active style, walking and cycling. It's 70,000, more than 70,000 kilometers. But this year action was stopped by the coronavirus. So we have to wait, because this is a very intensive thing. You see it here in the last number. There is an increase of interaction in public space, though this is not works not very well with the measures which we now have for COVID-19. But when we have uh, the possibility to socially interact more, then this is of course a very important uh, activity which changes a lot. Then I move to an activity in the city of Graz. It's from this neighborhood NGO, which I told you in the beginning, which was a partner in Graz, Landwirvo, artists and young people and shop owners as a group together. And they worked for the hybrid zones, especially for small businesses. It's about how to make the indoor solution and the outdoor solution more permeable, easier, let's say, to a type of connection. So neighborhoods go out to have a living room, outdoor living room, or there were shop windows were open, and as you see here in the pictures, and there were concerts in the shop window, or outdoor working places, or outdoor shared working space, craft workshops, outdoor hairstyles, and makeup sessions. So many things that make you feel what happens indoor. And what you see here in the one picture, which we are very proud of, is the neighborhood breakfast, which was organized by a nearby restaurant. So they gave for free some breads and drinks and coffee, and invited the neighborhood to an outdoor breakfast. And now this street is in in planning for being a permanent pedestrian zone. So it started with this temporary event, and now it changes in a permanent implementation. This is the best case, I would say, for starting with temporary and then ending up with a better solution for the public space. Yeah, this is what we did was also more guerrilla-like activities. So we used this wooden vehicle as a street furniture, but it was also possible to pull it and to move it on the streets. But we didn't know that it is not allowed to park such vehicles on public space. So it was stored away, and we had to pay a fine. So it was learning money. And we went to a lawyer and say, what should we do? Children like it very much, also people, because if you park such a vehicle on a roadside, immediately people come and sit down and talk to each other and so on. And what the lawyer gave us the advice and said, okay, why don't you construct a bicycle? So we did. We did, and it's allowed, at least in the Austrian law, it's allowed to park bicycles and, of course, to use it. And bicycles have no limitation in space, or let's say no very narrow. It's not allowed to make it broader than 2.5 meters, but and this is a very good way to offer space, which was a former car parking space for people. And we did it with 4 or 5 bikes to invite people to use the space for sitting down, for relaxing, for communication, and in that way. So all these measures are put together. So in fact sheets, so there are 66 fact sheets from the 7 cities and the 5 activity fields. They are grouped together in cities, like here the group from Zürich, or grouped together in action fields, or all together. They will be downloadable per mid of next week from our website. And how here you see the structure from such a fact sheet. It's a one-page sheet, so you see the short description, the outcomes and impacts, impacts related to neighborhoodness, to uh, empowerment of active mobility, and so on. And then you get some process information, some do's and don'ts, and in the blue box below the picture, you get some basic information about costs, effort, and which area to applicate, and evaluation with the um, butterflies. And then you get some recommendation for actors who want to follow the metamorphosis actions. And in the bottom, you get the contact details of the implementers, so that you can ask back for the implementation. It's not the only thing you can download from the website. It's also a brochure with arguments on road transformation in 10 language, or I think even 11 in the moment. And you can download infographics to each activity field and PowerPoint presentations for your use. You see the web page below in every slide, the web address. Now, a last thing, this was not implemented in one of our partner cities. For that action, we went to Brussels. So we looked for a parking space where we can do a photo. And if you look at that parking space, you see 2 children play in a pool. And of course, this is something which you maybe not usually find. And you can do the same situation in the back of a car, and you will find out that the left situation is allowed and the right is forbidden. So if you do the same, it's not allowed to do it in public space in the same way. If you have the right envelope called the car, then it is allowed to have children playing there. If you don't have a car, you cannot put only a tool on a parking space and to use it. And we have the feeling this is a matter of discriminations. That's why we made it in Brussels, this photo event and presentation events. And we had some members of parliament and of the commission and lobby groups and NGOs to discuss this, because usually the parking policy is part of, it's a let's say, the principle of subsidiarity. The European Union will not have any right to change anything in that, because it is said this should be done on regional or local level, or at least on national level in the road codes. But we wanted to make the European Union aware that this is a matter of unequal treatment, and unequal treatment is a matter which is on EU level. So if we have a lot of road codes which have some discrimination elements in it, then it should be the European Union which starts with rethinking that. So it's not a short-term thing, but in the end, public space should not be connected with the ownership of a certain product, that you get in addition some part of the public space, because this is not a fair solution in our mind. So what now? My final slide is now a little bit with the Corona times often used, but in that case, it was meant to establish a new normal in a way that public space should be given to people and to citizens instead of mainly to machines. And this was a word of Jan Gehl and Michael Colville-Anderson. Thank you for listening to the presentations, and waiting for your questions.
Thank you, Carl, for this inspiring presentation. We do have some questions already. So one question from Mario is there a link to the survey carried out in German cities?
Yes. I think you will send out, Melanie, or anyway the link to the webinar, and then we will put this information in this email. So all of you will get an email where to download or the presentation and the webinar link.
We have a question from Tim. Where was the street as an extended schoolyard project?
The let's say the idea was implemented years ago and is still in place in Odense. That's why we sometimes call it the model Odense and the model Bolzano. So Odense is the model 7-5 school street. This, in my remembering, was the first city who did it. Then we had also the city of Bregenz. It's in place there already for, I think, 3 or 4 years, also very successful. This is even a street where a bus line goes through, but the bus has to be moved in the speed of pedestrians. And we had it in Graz for, let's say, for temporary implementations, in some schools for 1 day, in some schools for 1 week, twice a year. It's in our area in the district of Land.
Thank you. There's a question about the current COVID-19 crisis from John. It's COVID-19 is going to require reallocation of road space. 2 meters of social distance not possible for many pavements. Can Metamorphosis help?
Yeah. Of course, this is a big discussion how to cope with these new rules and of COVID-19. And of course, there is a need of more space for pedestrians and cyclists. And the most space is given to the cars for car parking and moving around for car lanes. And for me, it seems to be logically, and a lot of city already started to have some COVID lines. I think Paris is the most ambitious example with, I think, 400 kilometers of cycle lanes. But in Berlin and in Milano and so on, there are many cities. In Metamorphosis, our city is a bit, I have to admit that we are a bit behind. So we got now the extension, and this should be on our agenda now, because usually the project would have been stopped by end of May, and now we got the extension because of COVID, and this will be part of our, let's say, future discussion within the cities.
We have a question from Natalia from Sydney. What is your greatest barrier in implementing your projects?
Within the project, I think the most important point is that there is a project champion. In the best case, it is somebody from the decision makers in a city, like the transport councillor or the head of planning department in the administration. And then things work more easily. If let's say for the bottom-up approach, a barrier, of course, is that some administrative, let's say, barriers can appear, because usually people in the planning departments are used to do things that they do all the time, and if they have to do new things, they are not so happy usually about that, and this is a barrier. And to convince them, it needs a lot of time and some uh, repeating also the messages and continuous awareness raising. I think this is the main issue, to have motivated people in the administrative part of the city who are ready for a change, and who like to do things in another way than yesterday.
That was nicely said. Another question is from Alex. How have the pedestrianized school areas been perceived by the local neighborhood around?
Mm-hmm. Hi, we had a quite intensive survey on that. So all the neighbors were interviewed in one area, and we had 20% of neighbors who didn't like that. Most of the neighbors were more or less, they had no clear idea. For them was, they were not affected, and the majority was positive. So we had only 20%, and this was interestingly elderly peoples, and they were afraid of more children noise. They had no problem with motor noise. This is a thing which we should think about, because we are already used on motor noise, and for children noise, there is not so much acceptance for a minority, I have to say.
Did you do the survey before and afterwards?
Yeah, it was only a week of closure, and we did it. The survey was about the duration of 1 month, because we had to go from door to door, and it needed more time than the period of closure. But the people knew about what it is about. If they didn't, we explained it.
Are there any more questions? If anyone has to share something, I can also unmute you if you have.
Yeah. It would be interesting, because I think we have a lot of listeners who are implementers from the different cities, so they know much better than I how to do.
So if you want to share anything,
Yeah.
please raise your hand. In the meantime, we do have another question. What about the duration of the temporary interventions?
Yeah. As I told, it's from 1 day to 1 week, depending on the activity. Let's say for the raised beds, it's maybe 1 season. Can be very different, yeah, depending on the measure. For the skater ramp, which I told you, I think this was for 7 weeks. And it's always, let's say, the idea is always to have it long enough that the people can get a feeling how the new situation looks like. Yeah, and then in the best case, they get the idea to say, okay, let's make it permanent. But if you get only the allowance for 1 day change, it's better than no day. Of course. Nora from Switzerland, she has a very good overview. Put all these fact sheets together and were in contact with all the implementing partners. Maybe you have to add something, or our evaluation partners from a Technical University of Dresden with some interesting evaluation results, which I didn't mention.
Nora?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, if there are questions, I'm open to answer them. But I think you gave a great overview of the best practice examples, Carl. So thanks for that. And yeah, as mentioned, there will be fact sheets with top tips and how we implemented all the different measures for all the cities, for all the implementations, soon on the website. So there you will find also further information.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you. There's also Ellen, huh?
Hello, Alan.
Hi, Carl. That was a great presentation. I think you managed to cover 3 years and about 600 activities in 25 minutes. Just to say, I think some of the questions that were asked, I think you could probably sort of say the initiatives really vary from sort of small scale involving a few people to activities that involve hundreds, if not thousands, in the case of like Let's Ride Southampton. So there were basically different initiatives designed around changing the cities generally to make them more child friendly, categorized by the activity groups that you mentioned. So if people did have sort of specific examples that they want to sort of show us and or share the experience of, we can do that and exchange our knowledge and experience back with them as well. I think this is a sort of global movement now increasingly, particularly as John says, as we come out of COVID, people are enjoying the fact that our city is quite empty at the moment, relatively free of cars, no pollution, no traffic noise, no dangers, from lots of speeding traffic. So, really we should be using it as an opportunity if we can to try and implement more of these measures.
If there is no question, maybe an announcement. On the website there is a lot of things to find if you are interested in this type of neighborhood and children orientated projects. So we have a YouTube channel with inspirational videos. There is a photo section where you can download photos which for your use or for your projects. A lot of background materials. Yeah, and also all the webinars which we gave are also there for download. And it's not only in English, it's in different languages. I think, Melanie, in up to 5 or 6 languages.
Yes.
They are getting more and more.
I can show you
I think you find a lot there. Yeah.
Yes, just to give you a short overview. Here, this is the Metamorphosis homepage. Probably most of you notice it because the registration for the webinars also is on this homepage. This is here on the bulletin board, you can find the webinars. If you click on past webinars, you can also find the webinars already done. And for instance, here, this one, it's the German one, but there's an English one as well. School Street from Bolzano.
Mm-hmm.
And you will find here, this one, there's down there a link to the recording in the YouTube channel. So you can have a look at it. There are plenty English ones as well. So, but for instance, this one, bicycle training in Graz. So just have a look at it. And if you go to downloads, you can find here the 20 good reasons, for instance, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 languages available. So have a look. It's Metamorphosis -project.eu. We do have another question from Dieter. Carl, what should city of Graz do? Next steps to avoid COVID-19 and change the city friendly for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this what I had in the beginning from the survey from the German Motorists Club, to take this know-how that the people are ready for a new space distribution and to be a bit more active in changing the distribution of the road space. This is should be the next action, and starting with this corridors where we have overcrowded footpaths and bicycle paths. In our case, it's for instance along our river. But there, it is not. You don't have to ask a Nobel Prize winner how to which streets should be taken. So we have a 5-car lane road to the heart of our city, 3 lanes to drive and 2 to park. So it's easy to find out that this is too much place for car traffic and no place for cycling traffic. So it's very easy to start, but there has to be a new awareness in that. But we have a good hope that COVID could speed up things like they were done in the digital world. Maybe they are also in the world of space distribution. This is our hope. And the media, they are already working quite good in that. There is a media campaign to start with action, and should be, and we hope this is reflected by the city decision makers.
We have no further questions so far, and no one wants to make a statement.
So it's 1 hour.
Yes. So Carl, thank you for this very inspiring presentation. Thank you too for your interest and for listening. I hope you feel inspired as well. Please spread and share the information from this webinar and from the Metamorphosis project. And I hope you have a very nice day and stay healthy. Thank you.